Hey everybody, this is Neil pumping out yet another ASL video. This time it is a boot camp, and maybe I should be calling this Boot Camp Zero because it's sort of circling back to I think the very first boot camp I did, which was called the ASL system. Maybe I should have started with this video first 2+ years ago, whenever that video was made, but I'm going to do it now. In one of our Friday night tacticals, we went over some of this stuff very quickly, but what I'm going to do, what I hope to present is information for new players, prospective players who are curious about the advanced squad leader system to show basically what it is, where it came from, the different versions, the level of complexity, and give a recommendation on where I think you should start if you want to jump into the advanced squad leader system, which is a system, as all of us veterans know, is one that you can play for life because it has uh, so much variation in the rule sets and the type of actions you can play with the plethora of scenarios that are available. Okay. As always, make sure to use the timestamps below in the video description to jump to the topic of your choice or of your interest, and please subscribe. And if you know any budding ASL players that are interested in the system, if you think this video is useful to them, shoot them the link and maybe we'll get some more fresh blood into the system, because that's always a good thing. Okay, let's start out with a short, brief history of squad leader and advanced squad leader. So the excuse me, the original squad leader came out in 1977, maybe 76. I think there was a purple box, which was like limited edition, early edition that got out to playtesters and whatnot. I just have the original orange box edition. Um, but the rules for that became increasingly muddled through the following three expansions. And the system was eventually scrapped because rules were being rewritten, replaced, and like I said, it become a very muddled system. I played all through that system up to GI Anvil of Victory, and that's when we stopped playing and we jumped into ASL because we could kind of see where it was going. Then in 1985, Advanced Squad Leader was released, and that was a complete redesign of the system from the ground up. Obviously, it increased the complexity, but it also added a lot of variability, a lot of variation to the system and organization. Very, very organized rule book, as you'll see coming up here. And then in between ASL and ASL Starter Kit, Hasbro buys Avalon Hill. Avalon Hill, I think they threw all their eggs into the ASL basket and into the video game market, which was just coming into its own, just kind of leaping off it in the late 80s, early 90s. I think they got ahead of themselves, and they basically probably weren't very profitable, or if profitable at all. And they were about to go under, I believe, and Hasbro comes in and buys Avalon Hill. And then a year later, in 1999, I believe, MMP licenses, the MMP we know today, licenses ASL from Hasbro and start creating ASL content, or keeping the ASL content coming for us players, dedicated players. And then in 2004, ASL Starter Kit came into being with Starter Kit number 1, the image showing up there in the upper right up here. It's called ASL Lite. I put it in quotes because it doesn't really have an official term. Simplified ASL, whatever you want to call it. The goal was to make it a more approachable system. It's still 100% ASL, meaning if you're learning Starter Kit, you're learning estimating 80% of the core rules of ASL. I'm not talking about all the optional rules and the historical rules and the different theaters of operation rules, just the core rules of the game. You're probably 80% there once you learn Starter Kit to be able to make the jump to full ASL if you choose to do that. That came about, that's almost 20 years ago already. Wow. Yeah, 2004, Starter Kit came out. So let's take a closer look at Squad Leader. There were 4 modules. uh, the original, and then 3 expansions. So Squad Leader was the core rules, beginning of the core rules, and it introduced American, German, and Russian nationalities. Cross of Iron came out. I don't have the dates of when these came out. They were all within maybe a year or two of one another. That focused on Eastern Front. It updated the gun and AFV rules, added more complexity, as well as more, made them more detailed as well. Crescendo of Doom came out after that. That was more Western Front focus, and it introduced British, French, Allied Minor, and it did a lot of reworking of the infantry rules in that one. And then in GI Emblem Victory, excuse me, per the name, American Forces. This is when the rules really started getting uh, muddled. Many rules were updated or superseded. And this is sort of acknowledged as the module that sort of broke Squad Leader. And that's when MMP said, okay, let's just stop making all these changes and adding modules to the system, and let's just basically start from ground zero and redo the rules logically from the ground up. So that's the squad leader system, increasing complexity from left to right. And I'm going to look at the starter kit, even though it came out after advanced squad leader, full advanced squad leader. I'm going to look at starter kit next. So um, starter kit modules have no dependencies, and that's sort of important. So the first module is introduces you to infantry, the infantry rule set. The second module introduces you, adds guns. So if you look at the rule book between module starter kit module 1 and starter kit module 2, the infantry rule set they've been updated to include errata, but all it does is it inserts gun rules into the rule set. So it just builds, the rule book gets a little bit bigger and it adds gun mechanics to the system. The next up is Starter Kit 3. It takes the previous rule book from Starter Kit number 2 and then adds vehicle rules into that. And then the last one, Starter Kit number 4, adds Pacific Theater and Japanese. It interjects that rule set into infantry, guns, and vehicles. So if you buy Starter Kit number 3, all the rules you need, infantry, guns, and vehicles, are included in the rulebook there. You can start playing all the scenarios, and all the counters are included that you need to play all the scenarios in Starter Kit number 3. So each of these modules are independent. You don't need to own one to play any of the others, including Decision at Else, which is a historical campaign game, the only one to date as the making of this video. And that introduces, on top of infantry, guns, and vehicles, it introduces a couple different types of terrain specific to this campaign game, and offboard artillery to the system. But offboard artillery is only used in Decision at Else. It's not used in any of these 4 modules. Okay, so the keynote here for Starter Kit is very little dependency between the modules. You can pick up one or the other or all of them and start anywhere. You just might have to read a few more rules. The logical progression is starting at 1, working your way all the way through because you're building on the rule set, and I'll touch on that later. And then here we go, we've got full ASL, and all I'm talking about here is the core modules. There are a lot of modules. There's a lot of third-party modules. I am not going to touch on any of those at all, because that adds a lot of complexity to any dependencies that go on. Typically, if you have a historical module, they may require many of these modules. So I'm just going to focus on the core modules. So what you need is the rule book for ASL and the charts to play, and excuse me, at a minimum, Beyond Valor, which includes German nationality, Russian nationality, and all the utility counters that you'll need to play, at least if you're using physical components. And then at the top of each of these, I have what's the dependency level. There's low, medium, and high. And low means it requires one other module, one other core module. Medium means it requires 3 other core modules, and high means it requires at least 4 other core modules. So if you're going to get into the system, the full ASL system, the order that you should buy these are roughly, in my opinion, roughly in this order, starting with Rulebook, Beyond Valor, Yanks, which introduces the regular U.S. Army, and then for King and Country, which introduces British and Commonwealth. These are interchangeable. If you're more interested in British and Commonwealth, you could get that one after Beyond Valor as opposed to Yanks. And then Armies of Oblivion, that's all the Axis minor. Uh, Doom Battalions is all the Allied minor. And I should note back here at Beyond Valor, Beyond Valor is required for every module because it has one, it has Germans. Germans are in, unless you're in the PTO, the Germans are involved in nearly every scenario in, East Front and West Front in Europe. And it includes all the utility counters, like I mentioned before. And then next is Hakapale, that introduces the Finns. Again, all these are interchangeable. This is sort of just the um, order I recommend that you would purchase them if you're getting into the system. Then we get into the medium dependency with Hollow Legions. That introduces Italian, Ethiopian, and Eritrean. Um, Next up is Rising Sun, which is a great module. Japanese introduces Japanese, Chinese, and U.S. Marine Corps. And finally, Croix de Guerre is high complex, or it's not high dependency, but that introduces the French, Free French, and Vichy nationalities to the World War II orders of battle. But that requires all the scenarios in there require at least 4 other modules. And then lastly, if you can consider it a core module, there's Forgotten War, which is Korean War, but there's no dependency there. Everything you need to play all the Korean War scenarios contained in there are included there. Okay. So this is sort of the order of the core modules to build up your system. Once if you happen to have all the core modules, then you can play anything except maybe some third-party stuff because there are some custom counters in third-party modules. But any of the official MMP, if you own all of these core modules, you can play anything in any historic module you get, any action packs, any winter offensive packs, pretty much anything Multi-Man Publishing puts out. You'll be able to play every scenario. Next up, I'm going to do a comparison between the 3 systems here. Looking at all the different aspects of the system to give you an idea of differences or similarities between Squad Leader in the first column, Starter Kit in the second column, and full ASL in the third column. Let's start with entry costs. Squad Leader cost is an unknown because it's out of print and it's fully dependent on the used market. You can get some beat up versions for cheap. You can get some pristine versions for obscene prices. Just depends on if you want to actually get into the system, the Squad Leader system, the original old system, and how much you want to spend. Starter Kit, cost of entry. Cost of entry means how much do I need to spend to actually start playing? Starter Kit, $30-ish. Starter Kit 1, boom, you can play infantry. You have all the infantry rule set. And you can play a bunch of scenarios for $30, maybe 25 if you buy a used one, maybe even a little cheaper. Full ASL, like I said, you need the ASL rulebook, you need some charts, and you need at least the Beyond Valor module. That's going to run you about $220, give or take, depending on buying used or new. Overall cost of the system, again, Squad Leader, who knows, used market. Starter Kit, for everything available today, it's probably going to run you about $300, give or take. ASL, as much money as you can stand, because there are probably hundreds of modules and products between Multi-Man Publishing and all the third-party publishers if you really want to go that way. You can stick with the core stuff and maybe keep it under 1,000. Modules are getting pretty spendy. Modules are getting, $150. The bigger modules, $200. but you can go crazy with ASL and spend a ton of money on it. The scale is pretty much all the same: 40 millimeters per hex, 10-man squads, individual weapons, vehicles, leaders, and heroes, etc. Complexity, squad leader, it starts out with medium. The original squad leader is not too complex. It's pretty straightforward, but as they introduce more rules into it through the programmed instruction set, um, it starts becoming pretty high. Plus, it becomes a little bit confusing because of the rules being superseded and contradicted and rewritten and that sort of thing. The rulebook is highly structured, like I said here, up here, highly structured using a programmed instruction method. But yeah, they become muddled as time goes along. Starter kit, excuse me, I put that at medium complexity relative to full ASL. But the rulebook is more verbose than Squad Leader, and I find the rules a little bit ambiguous. Sometimes the clarity that's in full ASL isn't captured in the verboseness, if that's a word, in Starter Kit, and there's no official index. So full ASL, if you want to look something up, there's a huge index, and it'll tell you all the places where that rule might be talked about in different sections. In Starter Kit, you just have to kind of flip your way through it and wonder where a particular rule is and where it is in a paragraph, because none of the paragraphs are numbered or in any real logical order. I'm not a huge fan of the ASL Starter Kit rulebook, to be honest. Full ASL complexity obviously very high, high to egregiously high depending on how far you want to go with the system, right? A lot of the rules are optional that you can add. If you stick to just the core rule set, the core system, it's still considered high. But the good news is the rule book is highly structured and clear. In fact, maybe I have the rule book here. Yes. So if you open up the rule book here, see if I can zoom in on it. Each section is numbered, makes references to other numbered entries in the rule book in sections, and tells you where to look up rules where they occur in other areas. And then if you're using the EASL rulebook, the PDF, everything's hyperlinked. So if it tells you to go to section B2.5, you just click on it and the rulebook will instantly take you there. Highly structured rulebook, very easy to find things when you're looking them up. Okay. The core rule set now. We're over here in this core rule set. I'm not talking about the full system. I'm talking about the rules you need under your belt to actually play the game, including infantry, guns and two-hit, vehicles, and terrain. The things I'm not referring to are nighttime airborne droppings in blizzards or beach landings at night with star shells or things like that, right? I'm just talking about the core rule sets. AS or Squad Leader, when you put the whole thing together, it's about 144 pages for the entire system. And none of the rules are really circumstantial. Um, they build on each other using the program instructions, meaning each scenario you play, it adds a little bit more rules, and you play through them and learn the rules all at once. Not all at once, but in pieces. ASL Starter Kit, you have about 40 pages for the entire system, which is actually reasonable to learn infantry, guns, two-hit, and vehicles. None are circumstantial. It's all core rules, and you can download the full rulebook for free at MMP's website, mmpgamers.com. So new players, if you're interested in seeing what their rulebook looks like, you can get it for free and actually peruse it before you decide to drop $30 on Starter Kit 1. And then full ASL. Now the rulebook, like I had here a second ago, looks a bit daunting, right? It looks massive, right? But the core rules are page-wise is about 160 pages, a little bit more than the original Squad Leader. All the other rules are optional in here, right? If you go into playing in the Desert Theater in North Africa, you never have to read those rules. If you don't play in the Pacific Theater, you don't have to read any of the rules about fighting in jungles or in caves or rice paddies or anything like that. If you don't want to do paratroop drops at night, you don't need to read night rules or paradrop rules or glider rules. You don't need to read. You can skip all that stuff. The core rules to play the game is about 160 pages. Not that much different in my opinion. Maybe word count's a little higher than the original squad leader, but the original squad leader becomes a muddled mess later on to learn the full system. Optional rules. Full squad leader or full original squad leader, there's essentially no optional rules. Programmed instructions, you play the scenarios and you learn as much as you want. You can't really skip scenarios because if you skip 10 scenarios ahead to another module, it's going to be using rules that were covered in the previous 9 scenarios, so you're going to have to read those rules anyway. Starter kit, no, there's no circumstantial rules, really. Um, every rule that's in there is used. No real optional rules. ASL, full ASL, there's maybe 500 pages of optional rules. That includes historical notes, which is chapter H. I'm including those as rules. Historical notes are vehicle listings for all the different nationalities and their vehicles, their special capabilities or limitations, and you need those to be able to play scenarios that include them. But you don't need to read chapter H. It's 200 and some pages, I believe. No one would sit down and read the entire thing. If you have 4 tanks in a scenario, and there are 2 types of tanks. You just go to chapter H and you read about those 2 tanks, and it's maybe a paragraph or two to learn what they can and can't do. But you don't have to sit down and read 500 pages of rules to learn how to play. You essentially need 160 pages. I'm going to show you don't even need to learn 160 pages to learn how to play because there is a programmed instruction method to play full ASL as well. Number of scenarios. Squad leader, very limited. I think there's around 100. Official, maybe there's more fan made or third party, but I don't know, around 100. Starter kit, maybe there's around a 200 between the core modules, the bonus packs, the expansion packs, and decision at else. Full ASL, oh man, I'm guessing there's easily 1,000 between official and third party. I couldn't hazard to guess, maybe up to 2,000 scenarios. Almost any action you can imagine during World War II, even before World War II. So there's some stuff that takes scenarios that take place before World War II, and obviously it goes through the Korean War, and then there's a module coming out, and it's called Contested Lands. I don't know when it's coming out, but it's about I believe the first Arab-Israeli war in the Middle East. So that's going to extend out into I don't know which war it was, the late 40s, early 50s, probably somewhere in there as well in another theater. Okay, what do we have next here? Hopefully this is useful. It's a little long-winded, but it's kind of cool to compare the systems here. Squad Leader is our historical campaign game system. Officially, no. Um, maybe some people made some that I'm unaware of, but officially there's no campaign game system. ASL Starter Kit, yes, there's one historical campaign game, Decision at Elst, and there's one coming soonish, the Marco Polo Bridge Incident, which is Japanese and Chinese. Um, Historical campaign game systems, ASL, yes, I'm guessing there's 100 of them. 20-ish are published by MMP, and there's a buttload and boatload and train loads of third-party ASL based on actual historical. Well, most scenarios are based on historical actions, but when I talk about historical campaign game systems, I'm talking about the maps are historically accurate, meaning they're drawn up like the actual terrain versus approximated using geomorphic board setups. Okay. Um, core rule and module breakdown. So in the OG, the original Squad Leader, there's about 40 pages per module. All right, Squad Leader, Cross of Iron, Crescendo of Doom, and GI. And then some people, I don't know who did it, they took the, the core rule set of the Squad Leader system and they rewrote them to make them more clear, I guess. I downloaded them a while ago, and one's called Squad Leader Redux, and one's called Squad Leader Classic, I believe. And they're both about 200 pages. And I look at them, and I go, how is this better than Advanced Squad Leader? I would rather I'd rather dive into Advanced Squad Leader. It's about the same amount of rules, and it's incredibly clear and organized at this point. So honestly, I would not waste my time on either of these rewrites personally. Starter kit. Starter kit 1, infantry is about 12 pages. So you only need to read about 12 pages of rules to get the infantry system under your belt. Another 9 pages for guns, about another 9 pages for vehicles, and about another 9 pages for the Pacific theater and the Japanese and concealment and things like that. I think that totaled about 40 pages if I recall. And then, excuse me, full ASL. Chapter A is about 62 pages, Chapter B 46 pages, Chapter C 26, Chapter D 27. The thing to note about these is, for example, Chapter B, you don't need to read all of Chapter B to start playing ASL. The first scenario you play, you only read the terrain entries from Chapter B that you need. So you read things like woods. I don't remember what the first scenario of full ASL is. You might read woods, open ground, brush. You know, you don't need to read about gullies and steeples and village terrain and swamps, and you don't need to read any of this stuff. You build your Chapter B terrain repertoire as you introduce scenarios into your own play. And then again, you don't need to read Chapter C to start playing ASL. Just start with infantry. Work in some guns later. Work in a mortar in a scenario to learn the two-hit process. Um, then same with vehicles. Put vehicles off for a while. Then play a scenario with a vehicle or two. Start learning the vehicle rules. You don't need to read these 140, whatever it was, 140, 160 pages of rules to start playing. You can take bite-sized chunks of full ASL and very easily learn it, just as easy as any of these other systems up here. All right, program instructions. Yes, that's what Squad Leader is known for. It's a brilliant system. You need about 7 pages of rules to play the first scenario. Each successive scenario builds on the rule set, so you're learning as you go along. Starter Kit sort of has program instructions, but it's kind of per module, like I went over before. So, Starter Kit 1, learn infantry. Starter Kit 2, learn guns. 3, vehicles. 4, PTO. So it's kind of programmed, but it's a little bit bigger scale. Uh, Full ASL, not officially no. There are no program instructions, but it can be done. And let me pop up real quick this article from the General, volume 30.1. I'll put a link to that in the description below to the 8 steps to ASL. Let me pop that up real quick. This was written by Jim Stoller. I don't know what year volume 30 was, maybe the 90s, early 90s, late 80s. I'm not exactly sure. But what he does here is he breaks it down into 10 lessons. So lesson 1 is the basic infantry system. And he says, okay, read these sections. And he kind of gives you a summary of what they are and why you should read it. Read all these sections. Skip everything else. Just read these sections. And then play this scenario. Play this scenario. And then lesson 2 is, okay, now read these sections and play the next scenario. So someone sat down, Jim specifically, and did a program instruction for Advanced Squad Leader that builds on Chapter A, which is infantry, and Chapter B. Then it introduces you to Chapter C and some guns. Then Chapter D in vehicles, while also bringing in more terrain and more infantry rules to give you that program and instruction feel that you get from the original squad leader. So if you're starting out in full ASL, not starter kit, I recommend downloading this article, again, in the description below, the link, and using this method to learn full ASL. I do not recommend drinking from the fire hose and taking the full rule book and attempting to devour it. Take it in bite-sized nibbles per this article if you're going to start with full ASL. All right. Orders of battle. Squad leader. The entire system has a more complete order of battle than starter kit, but it's small compared to ASL. The starter kit orders of battle is pretty limited. It primarily covers the major combatants, and it's very limited with ordnance, vehicles, and number of counters. So it limits the size of action you can take. Let me get myself out of the way here. Uh, Full ASL, exhaustive. It covers nearly every unit, vehicle, gun, weapon, all the major ones in all of World War II. I mean, you can play nearly any type of action of World War II. And there are tons of counters, meaning you can have either small actions or huge actions. Starter kit very limited. Most of the actions in the starter kit are fairly small because you only have 3 of this kind of tank or 8 of this type of squad or what have you. Size of actions limitations. I guess I just talked about this. Large if you have the entire system. Mostly small for starter kit. Uh, Full ASL is limited only by your imagination. Tens of thousands of counters are available to you. Even more if you dip into third party. Dependencies. Squad leaders standalone. Dependencies exist with following expansions. Starter kit. All modules are self-contained. Very important for those who want to learn the system. Full ASL. High dependency. Not high, but there's dependency between the modules, and the level of dependencies depend on the module. I went over that earlier. But you need to start with Beyond Valor. That's the first module you should start with. I think I have one more table here. Whew. We'll get through it. Let me pop up my ugly mug again. There we go. Third-party publishers, squad leader, none that I know of. None, at least, that have a name. I think some fans have made some scenarios. Starter kit. Uh, Most third they don't really focus on starter kit. I know there are some scenarios that have included in some modules like Advancing Fire in Prokhorovka. They included, I think, 2 starter kit scenarios. So there's a little bit here and there, but there's no real focus in the third party on any starter kit type of products. And full ASL that I know of, there are some that used to be active and some are more active than others, but I think there's at least 6 who release 1 or more ASL products per year, either historical campaign games and or module packs, that kind of thing, or magazines as well. Player activity. I made this. I took these numbers a while ago. Actually made this presentation probably 9 months ago, but squad leader, original squad leader, very low activity, and I'm basing this on vassal activity. And you can look up vassals to see how much a module has been played over like a 30-day period. So when I looked this up over a 30-day period, there were only 80 sessions of squad leader played, and there were 5,700 sessions for ASL/starter kit. They use the same module, so you can't differentiate between the two. So ASL had 5,700 active sessions in Vassal. Squad leader had 80 over a month. So not a lot of activity on the squad leader front. ASL Starter Kit, very active, and because it's a pretty popular system, cheap entry, fairly easy to learn, as well as many ASL players can and also do play Starter Kit. I play the occasional Starter Kit scenario once in a while. Full ASL players can easily go back to playing starter kit. They just might have to remember to not use a specific rule once in a while. Full ASL, extremely active. Lots of communities out there, lots of products being released. Very easy to find opponents, especially over Vassal playing online. Component crossplay. Squad leader, there's no commonality with ASL or starter kit. You can't use components from squad leader and use them in ASL and pretty much vice versa. Between ASL and ASL Starter Kit, they're the exact same components. You can use them all together. It's the same system, except one is just sort of a simplified version. Scenario crossplay. Can you play ASL scenarios in Squad Leader? You could try it. I don't recommend it, but um, there's counter availability problems and board availability problems possibly. I would not recommend it. Can you play ASL scenarios in Starter Kit? Sure. Some of the rules used in balancing full squad leader scenarios, you'd have to strip them away in Starter Kit, and it might cause some balance issues. And can you play a Starter Kit with ASL? Well, of course. If you're playing full ASL, you know how to play Starter Kit. Like I said, you just have to not use some of the rules like heat of battle, bypass movement, things like that. Some of the biggies. Snipers, right? You just don't use those rules. Can you play email? Yes, works extremely well using log files from Vassal for the original squad leader. For Starter Kit and ASL, technically yes, but I have not tried it, but I've thought through how you would do it because I've played a lot of Vassal. It's got to be extremely slow and cumbersome due to the difference in defensive fire mechanics between ASL and original squad leader. So one thing squad leader has going for it, at least playing online, is it's great for using mailing log files back and forth and playing that way instead of doing it live on Vassal if you choose to play that way. And is there Vassal play? Yes. For squad leader, the VQSL module, and for squad leader, starter kit and squad leader, it's the Vassal module. They use the exact same module because it's essentially the same game, just little simplified rules on this side. Okay, so I think that's it for the comparison between the three systems. Now I'm going to make my grand recommendation and what will you need to play. Okay. So my recommendation is to start with starter kit, and what you're going to need, all you're going to need is this starter kit number one, $30. You can get it a bunch of different places, including Multi-Man Publishing. You can probably get it used for, you can get it for $25, $35. Everything you need to play Advanced Squad Leader. It's got the rule book, all the counters, the maps. It comes with 2 maps. I think it comes with dice. Comes with and all the counters you need. Everything you need to play the 6 scenarios included in this. And there's a huge community to help you out if you decide to jump into the squad leader system. And it's a great jumping off point to bullet number 2. So if you play starter kit and you go, this is a very cool system, and at least you get the infantry system under your belt. You can either go to starter kit 2, or if you really dig it, you can say, I'm gonna jump into full ASL. So what do I need for full ASL? Well, first you need to start playing ASL at a minimum. You need, see if I can get this all on there. You need this module, Beyond Valor. ASL module number 1. It includes the entire German order of battle, which is fought on 2 fronts, as we know, in Europe. So Germans are included in a lot of scenarios, and it includes the Russian order of battle and all the utility counters you need to play using physical components. So you need that. And on top of that, you'll need the rulebook. Now you have 3 options for the rulebook. You've got the pocket edition here. I think it's $60 on MMP's website. And this includes chapters A through W, the Korean War. So it's got infantry, terrain, guns, vehicles, chapter E, which is miscellaneous, mostly optional rules. Chapter F, which is desert terrain, North Africa. Chapter G, which is PTO in Japanese. It's got the squad leader training manual. If you want to step through, it'll show you how to set up. Just freaking out my background here. It'll step you through a text, have you set up boards and counters, and tell you how to move, and it tells you what happened and which rules are being used and how they're used. Extremely slow. I would rather watch YouTube videos. And then the Korean War. So it's got the entire rule set except for any of the historical rules for things like Kampfgruppe Piper, Bridge Too Far, uh, Red Barricades, Red Factories, all those, right? Those are all completely separate. So that's one. You can get it as the pocket rulebook, the small version, which I prefer. I prefer reading when I'm sitting in a chair reading rules. This is what I like to read. Then you've got the monstrous 3-ring binder, which is the same thing. It's just enormous. And it's got all the charts as dividers in it. Too big for me. I don't read this thing. It sits on the shelf. I've mentioned this before. It's a boat anchor. It collects dust. Never use it. And then there is the ASL rulebook. Maybe I'll put a image up over there of the PDF and what it looks like. Very convenient. This is what I use when I'm playing Vassal online. I have it on another monitor. I can look up rules. You can do. It's fully searchable by text. It's fully hyperlinked, and you can click to the next section. Then you can go back to where you were, and you can jump around very easily. Best thing that's happened to ASL in a long time, in my opinion. EASL rulebook. Oh, I think the 3-ring binder is like $99, if I recall. The EASL rulebook is 60. I can't recall that either. So you need a rulebook. Next, you'll need Chapter H. Okay, and you either have to buy it separately as a pocket book, the small version, which again I prefer. So it's got all the armor listings for all the nationalities, all the details of every piece of armor, vehicle, gun, what they can and can't do, etc. But if you buy the 3-ring binder or the EASL rulebook version, it's included in there. You only have to buy this separate if you buy the pocket version of the rulebook right up there. And lastly, you will need the charts. Even if you have the 3-ring binder that includes the charts, and the EASL rulebook, which includes the charts, they're just not conducive to being used. It's all gathered in a 3-ring, not a 3-ring, but a ring binder. It's got all the charts you need, right? Infantry fire table, concealment chart, concealment chart, infantry fire table, 2-hit table. It's got everything. Terrain tables. So you'll need this, which is MMP's official version, or you can get the LFT third party rat charts. These might be out of print. They print up X amount of them, and I think when they sell, they're gone, and you have to wait for the next printing. You might be able to find this somewhere online, but it's sort of the same thing as this. It's just a different format. And it flips. Oop, yeah, it looks green screen. Let's go blue. The problem with this, it's a little more compact. There are a ton of errors in this, unfortunately. Lots of errors. This has few errors because the charts are taken directly from the ASL rulebook. It's all official. It's been vetted for decades, and it's all good to go. This, lots of errors, beware. Okay, and all of those, unfortunately, all those charts and rule books are sold separately. You can get a bundle, like you can get a pocketbook bundle that will save you a little money, but most of the time they are sold separately. Okay, so that's what you need to play full ASL. Beyond Valor, a rule book, chapter H, historical listing, and charts. Need those four things to start playing full ASL. That's my second recommendation. After recommending you start with Starter Kit. If you want to skip the full ASL, that's what you need. Lastly, if you want to start with the original squad leader, you're going to need this. Here's my 44-year-old, 45-year-old box, however old it is. It's not too bad for being that old and making all the moves over the years. You're going to need the original squad leader. I I really don't like the dog on squad leader because it's a phenomenal game, but I don't recommend starting with this. If you're just getting into the squad leader system, this had its time to shine in the sun and it shined ever so brightly, but it's it's just one of those classics that's best to be admired, in my opinion. It's an unsupported system. It's kind of a mess when you get deeper into the system, and there's not a whole lot of activity, either players or people creating content for it. So uh, I love you, squad leader, but you're retired to the shelf, and I just open you up and take a gander at you once in a while and admire your 40-year-old beauty. Okay, so that's my recommendation. God, this is long-winded. Where are we at? 47 minutes. That's not too bad. But anyway, that's my recommendation. All the new players out there, Advanced Squad Leader is an amazing system. Don't be intimidated by it. You can easily start with Starter Kit and be off and running after reading 12 pages of rules and having thousands of players in a bunch of active communities answering any question you could ever want about Squad Leader and helping you out. Um, or you can jump into the full system after dipping your toe into Starter Kit, or if you are very brave and just want to go at it, Full Squad Leader is one of those systems that you can play for a lifetime. And most of us do, because to get into it and become good at it, I'm not even sure I'm good at it at this point. I'm decent, I suppose. I'm competent, probably. Um, you need to play it, right? Playing is learning, and playing is getting better. And but the thing is the rule set is so deep and so varied, and many of it optional, that you can keep it as simple as you want or make it as complex and detailed and historically accurate as you want. Just depends on where you want to go with the system. You can also play scenarios that are not alike at all. You could play one scenario one day, not one day, but one week that is, you know, company sized, infantry only, daylight, simple terrain, easy victory conditions, right? Pretty no-brainer scenario. And then the next week you could say, hey, let's start a Red Barricades campaign game, which is massive scale, just a bloodbath, tons of optional rules, historical rules, just chaos. And you can do everything in between. Anything you can imagine that happened and did happen during World War II, you can simulate and game using the full ASL system. Squad leader, like I said previously, I love you. You've earned your time on the retirement shelf. All right, that's it. Hopefully, this opens some eyes on where you need to start, what the systems are, and where you need to start if you want to get into the squad leader or advanced squad leader system. If you know anyone interested in learning the system, where they should start, I recommend forwarding this link to them. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you found the video useful and you made it this far, post in the comments below and said, I watched to the end, and I'll see you in the next video, ASL Academy.